Greetings, everyone, and welcome to what just might be the single most electrifying and groundbreaking development in professional tennis this entire year. We are absolutely witnessing something extraordinary unfolding right before our very eyes. An incredible story is unfolding that is sending massive shockwaves from the courts of Southeast Asia all the way to the largest stadiums in the United States. This is not mere speculation or empty hype because it is officially confirmed and absolutely spectacular as Alexandra Eala emerges as the ultimate pride of the Philippines. She has truly reached an entirely new level that stretches far beyond mere rankings and traditional tournament draws. Pushing past her junior titles, she has crossed into the massive realm of superstardom, proving she is now officially a phenomenon in America rather than just a hometown hero. As we speak right now, thousands upon thousands of dedicated fans are mobilizing as tickets are rapidly disappearing. Elaborate travel plans are being made while entire communities are eagerly organizing watch parties and massive stadium meetups. Fans are literally flying in from different states just to see her compete live on American soil, proving this is no longer just about a promising young talent climbing the rankings. This marks the undeniable emergence of a global icon in the making. So pause for a brief moment and deeply consider the sheer magnitude of this situation. The United States is certainly not a country that easily adopts international tennis stars since it maintains its own deep, historic relationship with the sport. This is the exact same proud nation that historically produced absolute legends like Serena Williams, Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, and Billie Jean King. The sport is deeply woven into American culture with incredibly high standards and a wildly knowledgeable, fiercely demanding fan base. And yet here we currently stand, watching one single name circulate with undeniable momentum from the electric hard courts of New York to the sun-drenched stadiums of California. That name is Alex Eala, and American tennis fans are constantly talking about her incredible shot selection alongside her remarkable composure. They deeply admire her fearless baseline game and those wicked left-handed angles, yet something even more profound exists beyond the technical admiration. There is something distinctly more emotional happening right now as the Filipino-American community has completely mobilized in a truly extraordinary fashion. Entire sections of massive stadiums are being secured far in advance, with flags being prepared alongside roaring drums, loud chants, and highly coordinated meetups. But it is definitely not only the diaspora driving this movement, because a brand new wave of American fans who simply love compelling stories and fearless competitors is rapidly being drawn in. They clearly see a driven young player who bravely left home as a teenager to intensely train overseas in Spain. They witnessed a fierce discipline shaped directly at the Rafa Nadal Academy and noticed the immense resilience built through grinding out tough, lower-tier tournaments. They recognize pure authenticity in her journey, and pure authenticity always travels incredibly well across any border. We are witnessing massive crowds that resemble what you would normally expect for a seasoned top 10 veteran rather than a 20-year-old, still carving her space on tour, with long lines forming incredibly early. Merchandise is moving incredibly fast, while social media engagement surges and broadcast mentions rapidly increase, proving this is purely organic growth. This represents genuine, unstoppable momentum, and perhaps most importantly of all, a monumental cultural crossover in the modern sporting world. For several decades, the sport of tennis has genuinely struggled to truly globalize its widespread fan engagement far beyond the traditional, established powerhouses. But Alexandra Eala is actively bridging these distinct markets in real time as she proudly represents Southeast Asia while competing with a beautifully refined European style that currently captivates massive audiences in America. That particular combination is incredibly rare, yet what makes this specific moment even more compelling is that it still feels so wonderfully early in her career. It honestly feels much more like the thrilling beginning of an epic journey rather than the final peak of a short-lived trend. Because when thousands of passionate fans across the United States actively rally behind a young Filipino player without any forced corporate marketing, it shows something truly profound. When fans genuinely believe in her without any corporate marketing push, this completely ceases to be a passing trend and officially becomes her grand arrival as the entire tennis world watches incredibly closely. This narrative is no longer just a simple story about match results on a digital scoreboard, because it has beautifully transformed into a massive statement about global representation and deep cultural connection. It is ultimately about a brave young athlete stepping confidently into massive arenas that were once dominated entirely by established superpowers and actively commanding absolute attention exactly on her own terms. The United States has certainly embraced countless legendary champions throughout its rich sporting history before this very moment. But today, this country is fully embracing limitless possibility, and Alexandra Eala stands proudly right at the absolute center of it all. So stay with us, because if this fierce momentum continues, we might be witnessing the early chapters of something truly historic. This massive groundswell is vastly more than just temporary momentum, because it represents a truly monumental and structural shift in the sporting landscape. It powerfully proves a deeply fundamental truth about professional sports in our modern era by demonstrating that pure talent simply has no geographical boundaries. We are actively learning that true excellence cannot be confined by physical borders, and that a profoundly powerful story of discipline, sacrifice, and raw athletic brilliance can instantly captivate hearts anywhere on the entire planet. For 4 long years, we have carefully watched Alexandra Eala steadily climb the ranks as we witnessed her tirelessly grind her way through the demanding junior circuit. We watched in pure awe as she lifted massive trophies under immense pressure, clearly showing bright flashes of absolute greatness, remarkable composure far beyond her young age, and a deep competitive hunger that absolutely never faded away. But what we are all collectively witnessing right now across the United States feels entirely different and vastly more profound. This incredible level of mainstream visibility and this truly tangible, undeniable daily presence within America represents a massive surge of widespread recognition from one of the absolute biggest sports markets on earth. This magnificent shift clearly marks a definitive turning point as she officially transitions from being a beloved regional hero into becoming an unstoppable global athletic force. And today, we are going to meticulously break down exactly how this entire phenomenon happened by looking closely at the specific numbers and deeply examining the massive cultural impact she has generated. We will carefully analyze her actual tennis mechanics and fully unpack the undeniable, almost magnetic gravitational pull that makes Alexandra Eala so incredibly captivating. So settle in comfortably, because this is the spectacular story of exactly how one young girl from the Philippines completely captured the undivided attention, the deep respect, and the fierce loyalty of millions. She truly ignited the profound passion of thousands of dedicated fans spreading entirely across the United States. And to fully understand why these massive American crowds are consistently showing up in such overwhelming numbers, we really need to examine the solid foundation of her incredible rise. Because reaching this profound level of international fame and widespread adoration is absolutely never just a fortunate accident. It is carefully constructed layer by layer over many grueling years, starting first and foremost with absolute pedigree, which proves Alex Eala is definitely not some random overnight sensation. There was absolutely no cheap viral internet shortcut or sudden miraculous breakthrough that magically handed her this incredible success. Her remarkable ascent is solidly built upon relentless hard work, highly structured athletic development, and the kind of heavy personal sacrifices that most young athletes would honestly never be willing to make, like bravely leaving her home as a young teenager to relocate entirely across different continents. By completely immersing herself inside a vastly foreign training environment, her bold move to the Rafa Nadal Academy, located over in beautiful Mallorca, proved to be a masterful decision. Moving to Spain was an absolute defining moment and a brilliant masterstroke in her continuous evolution, placing her directly inside an intense ecosystem, heavily shaped by one of the fiercest and greatest competitors this sport has ever produced. While she trained there, she absorbed vastly more than just proper physical technique, because she deeply internalized the elite mentality, the fierce discipline, and the unbreakable resilience required to truly succeed. She gained immense strategic mental clarity while operating under the direct guidance of brilliant elite coaches and thriving within a rigorous culture completely forged by incredibly demanding championship standards. She ultimately refined a truly spectacular game that seamlessly blends raw physical power with brilliant tactical intelligence. And that specific game instantly begins with one incredibly massive natural advantage over her peers. She is naturally left-handed, And within the highly competitive realm of professional tennis, that one single trait completely changes the fundamental geometry of the entire court. Her wicked serve naturally opens up incredibly sharp angles directly on the deuce side, while her heavy cross-court forehand violently pulls right-handed opponents out incredibly wide and completely traps them inside very uncomfortable backhand exchanges. Tactical patterns instantly shift, and standard return positions are heavily forced to adjust, meaning the fast-paced rallies subtly tilt deeply in her total favor before they can even fully develop. But this unique advantage is definitely not just about naturally being left-handed, because it is entirely about exactly how brilliantly and effectively she weaponizes that specific physical trait to completely dismantle her top-tier opponents. Her massive forehand constantly carries incredibly heavy topspin, which is the direct product of countless years spent intensely training within clay court-centric systems that aggressively kick the ball high and physically push her frustrated opponents completely off balance. She brilliantly contrasts that heavy looping shot with a much flatter and far more penetrating backhand that she consistently drives through the court with absolute authority. She flawlessly blends heavy spin with pinpoint precision, while perfectly balancing calm patience with raw aggression to showcase ultimate control mixed with brilliantly calculated risks. That phenomenal dynamic balance makes her incredibly dangerous on any surface. But superior physical mechanics alone simply do not explain her massive rise to American superstardom, since the vital second layer of this phenomenal ascent, her deeply compelling personal narrative. American audiences constantly connect on a profoundly deep level with genuine stories of ultimate sacrifice and self-made progress because they naturally recognize the daily grind and fiercely respect the difficult climb to the top. When passionate fans discover that she tirelessly worked her way up through much smaller International Tennis Federation tournaments while quietly and methodically building her ranking points, they instantly fall in love with her journey because she genuinely earned her rightful place, step by tedious step. Her story deeply resonates with the public, since there is pure authenticity in that challenging journey, and true authenticity always scales massively. The essential third layer to this incredible story, which is perhaps the absolute most explosive element of all, is the beautiful cultural convergence happening directly in the grandstands. The Filipino-American community easily represents one of the absolute largest and most tightly connected diaspora groups currently living in the United States, and when they collectively rally behind one of their very own, they do so in a beautifully organized, highly visible, incredibly loud, and fiercely proud manner. But what honestly makes this specific moment in time so remarkably extraordinary is that the widespread support has organically expanded far beyond just her shared cultural heritage. Mainstream American tennis fans are actively showing up in massive numbers too, because they clearly see a highly entertaining competitor who always plays incredibly fearless tennis. They constantly witness her remarkable composure during absolutely suffocating high-pressure moments and deeply admire her natural magnetic charisma that perfectly shines without any trace of selfish arrogance. That incredibly rare combination of traits easily travels across completely different cultures, and when massive diaspora support naturally merges with neutral mainstream admiration, you truly get something extraordinarily rare in modern sports. You ultimately get an unstoppable momentum that aggressively feeds entirely upon itself as crowds exponentially grow. Massive media coverage rapidly expands. Casual curiosity beautifully turns into diehard fandom, and suddenly what humbly began as regional pride blossoms into a massive global phenomenon. We have definitively reached the ultimate inflection point in her rapidly expanding career trajectory. This massive turning point is happening not just because of her climbing ranking or her spectacular match results, but because widespread mainstream recognition inside the United States completely changes the entire commercial landscape of Cordal. A professional athletic career as major corporate sponsors immediately take notice. Powerful network broadcasters actively pay close attention, and elite tournament directors take a massive personal interest because the sheer market size of the American audience alone massively amplifies absolutely everything she does. This is precisely where localized regional success beautifully transforms into massive global leverage, and the most truly remarkable part of this entire situation is that it all still feels incredibly early, This incredible story simply does not feel like a nicely finished chapter, but rather feels exactly like a massive rocket ignition. So, as we continuously dive deeper into this phenomenon, we are not just analyzing a talented tennis player anymore. We are actively examining the exact underlying mechanics of how massive modern global stardom is expertly built through sheer athletic skill and a beautifully compelling personal story. Her massive fame is organically grown through deep cultural connections and a fiercely loyal fan base that is entirely willing to actively show up in massive force at any given moment. Alexandra Eala most certainly did not just casually gain her millions of American fans, but rather she fiercely earned their profound respect, and that single distinction truly makes all the difference in the world. Armed heavily with a lethal forehand that completely dictates long rallies and a gorgeous backhand fully capable of brilliantly flipping desperate defense into aggressive offense in one single lightning-fast strike, Alexandra Eala quickly became vastly more than just another promising junior player. Her incredibly rigorous European training was highly structured, deeply disciplined, and ultimately forged directly inside the hottest competitive fires imaginable. All of that intense academy discipline seamlessly blended perfectly with her explosive natural physical athleticism to create an absolute powerhouse on the court, and the spectacular result was a fierce young player who did not just casually compete on the junior circuit. She completely and utterly controlled the entire junior tour with an iron grip, and it was directly upon that grand stage that mainstream America truly began to actively notice her immense star potential. To fully understand the deep roots of her current massive fame across the United States, we absolutely have to rewind the clock back to one truly defining moment, which was her historic and unforgettable championship run at the United States Open Junior Championships. Actually winning any junior Grand Slam tournament is an absolutely extraordinary athletic accomplishment for literally any young aspiring tennis player trying to make a name for themselves. But managing to accomplish that massive feat directly in New York on those blistering fast hard courts while fully under the incredibly harsh glare of the American sports media and performing directly in front of one of the absolute most demanding tennis audiences in the entire world is truly something else entirely. The exact moment when she finally lifted that massive United States Open Junior trophy high into the sky, she permanently cemented her legacy and officially put the entire tennis world on high alert by boldly becoming the very first Filipino in history to win a junior Grand Slam singles title. She did vastly more than just secure a victory because it was a thunderous statement showing she would never quietly collect the title. She officially announced her arrival to the world, and the notoriously demanding American tennis establishment has always profoundly respected genuine champions who showcase an unbelievable amount of pure grit. The massive crowds heavily respect pure composure under extreme pressure, and during that specific tournament, they saw both elements brilliantly displayed by a focused teenager who completely refused to flinch on the biggest points. They witnessed absolute tactical maturity far beyond her young years, as they deeply admired her remarkable poise during televised interviews and absolutely loved her humble grace directly following a massive victory. That spectacular United States Open Championship run absolutely did not just hand her a beautiful trophy because it firmly laid the rock-solid foundation for absolutely everything that is currently unfolding right now. It masterfully planted an incredibly powerful seed that has beautifully grown, ensuring passionate American fans permanently remembered her name, while highly respected broadcasters easily recalled her unbelievable composure. Professional analysts clearly remembered exactly how brilliantly she handled massive pressure directly upon one of the most highly visible stages in the entire sport. So when her name began rising again on the professional tour, it was definitely not an unfamiliar sight. It was wonderfully familiar to everyone involved, and that beautiful sense of familiarity consistently breeds an unbreakable level of deep loyalty. But the magnificent story of Alex Ayala thriving inside America simply cannot be explained by her incredible tennis mechanics alone, because looking deeply beyond her heavy forehands and slicing backhands lies something infinitely more powerful, which is pure community. The vast landscape of the United States proudly serves as the welcoming home to literal millions of incredibly hardworking Filipino Americans. It easily stands as one of the absolute largest and most incredibly vibrant Filipino diasporas anywhere in the entire world, forming a beautifully proud community that fiercely honors its rich cultural heritage. This is a profoundly deeply connected group of incredibly passionate people remaining fiercely unwavering in their massive support of absolutely anyone who authentically represents them on a global stage. And for the entire Filipino-American community, which is wonderfully and often referred to as the Philam community, Alex genuinely represents vastly more than just a talented athlete because she is their ultimate living representation. She is incredibly visible directly upon a massive global stage that historically has not featured very many Southeast Asian stars dominating within the highly competitive realm of professional singles tennis. Whenever she confidently walks onto any massive American court, she is absolutely never walking alone because she proudly carries the immense pride of hardworking families who bravely built successful lives all across California, Nevada, Hawaii, New York, and far beyond. She beautifully represents countless generations of resilient people who worked incredibly quietly and passionately, contributed everything they had to actively build up their local communities. They bravely built brand new cultural identities within a foreign country located incredibly far away from their beloved ancestral home. So, for all of them, actively seeing her spectacularly succeed feels profoundly and incredibly personal. It serves as the ultimate cultural affirmation because it means actively seeing someone who proudly shares their beautiful heritage boldly stand toe to toe with the absolute best in the entire world and definitively prove they belong. There, that profoundly deep emotional connection is exactly why the overwhelming crowd support constantly feels so incredibly different because it is absolutely never just casual observation, but rather a fiercely collective movement. It completely explains exactly why expensive tickets seemingly vanish into thin air so incredibly quickly whenever her name enters a tournament draw, and why thousands of beautiful flags instantly appear, filling the massive stands while deafening chants echo far louder than anyone ever expected. Because for literal millions of passionate Filipino Americans, Alex Eala is absolutely not just out there competing for a shiny trophy. She is beautifully reflecting their massive collective pride back to the entire world. And when that profound level of deep cultural representation perfectly combines with elite athletic performance, you absolutely do not just get regular fans. You ignite a totally unstoppable global movement. Her spectacularly historic Junior United States Open victory might have beautifully introduced her unbelievable talents to mainstream America. But the magnificent combination of her continued professional growth on tour, perfectly mixed with deep cultural resonance and a massive diaspora, completely ready to fiercely rally behind one of its very own, is exactly what has successfully turned a polite introduction into an absolute worldwide phenomenon. And the most incredible part about this beautiful story is that it is definitely still rapidly unfolding because whenever Alex Eala competes anywhere within the United States, it instantly stops being just a regular tennis match. It completely transforms into a profoundly massive cultural moment where the entire stadium dramatically shifts as the roaring stands beautifully ripple with gorgeous waves of vibrant blue, stunning red, pure white, and bright yellow. Thousands of beautiful Philippine flags proudly rise extremely high above the roaring crowd as incredibly deafening chants violently roll directly across the entire court during the brief moments between intense points. The overall atmospheric energy dramatically shifts entirely away from mere polite applause, directly into something far more passionately visceral, meaning you simply do not just hear the massive support, you actively feel it as it violently hums directly through the concrete stadium structure. It violently rattles directly through those intense baseline rallies and completely changes the entire emotional temperature of the highly anticipated match, proving that kind of incredibly electric atmosphere absolutely does something profoundly powerful. It beautifully and organically creates the ultimate home court advantage for her, even when she is physically competing literally thousands of miles entirely away from the beautiful city of Manila. For Alexandra, stepping confidently onto any American court absolutely never feels foreign because it wonderfully feels incredibly familiar to her. The deafening cheers constantly carry distinct accents from Los Angeles, San Diego, Las Vegas, and New York, but the massive pride and absolute belief always sound exactly the same. That incredible built-in fan base is absolutely not accidental because it is profoundly, deeply rooted and provides her with a massive psychological cushion that many other players simply do not possess when competing abroad. But here is exactly where this phenomenal story becomes even more completely fascinating, because that electric energy simply does not stay contained solely within the Filipino-American community. It beautifully spreads outwards as curious mainstream American fans, who may have originally come simply to watch a general tennis session, suddenly find themselves magnetically pulled directly toward her court. They clearly hear the massive noise, they visually see the beautiful flags flying high, and they instantly sense that something truly monumental is actively happening right there. And that natural curiosity quickly turns into undivided attention, because they desperately want to physically experience that raw electricity and deeply want to see the spectacular player who effortlessly commands that extreme level of fierce loyalty. And once they actually watch her fiercely compete, they vividly see those wicked left-handed angles perfectly paired with her incredibly heavy forehand. That utterly fearless shot making rapidly turns casual curiosity directly into profound admiration, creating a massive, unstoppable snowball effect where pure diaspora support beautifully ignites the initial spark. Mainstream media attention aggressively feeds the growing flame, and suddenly massive momentum actively builds entirely upon its own, as what humbly began as pure community pride beautifully evolves into a massive cross-cultural fandom. Now, carefully layer that incredible phenomenon directly into the much broader current landscape of professional women's tennis, because the Women's Tennis Association Tour is currently navigating a highly fascinating period of major transition. Countless established legendary champions have gracefully stepped away from the sport, meaning the previously dominant eras of the past have completely shifted into unknown territory. The current competitive hierarchy feels incredibly fluid, and passionate sports fans, especially those living entirely within the United States, are completely hungry for something new. They are absolutely hungry for brand new superstars, hungry for fierce new rivalries, and profoundly hungry for brilliant new stories that genuinely feel purely authentic and incredibly fresh, which makes Alex Eala fit this specific moment absolutely perfectly. She brilliantly brings thrilling youth completely, without any foolish immaturity, and brings fierce competitive fire without any trace of toxic arrogance, while perfectly blending intense technical discipline with pure emotional authenticity. Her spectacular playing style is incredibly dynamic and fiercely aggressive, yet brilliantly thoughtful, completely modern, but solidly grounded in beautiful classical tennis fundamentals. She proudly represents the ultimate next generation of global tennis, being spectacularly globally trained, beautifully culturally connected, and incredibly digitally visible to millions. And that highly crucial last element regarding her massive digital presence simply cannot be underestimated, because this is absolutely not the older era where athletic fame was built solely upon traditionally televised matches. Modern sports stardom completely lives and actively breathes online, where incredible viral clips of her blistering forehand winners rapidly circulate across massive digital platforms within mere minutes of happening. Intense training footage capturing her grueling physical practice sessions effortlessly racks up massive millions of digital views from dedicated fans around the world. Beautiful, behind the scenes, glimpses into her intense daily preparation wonderfully humanize her, while incredibly mature interviews reveal pure composure far beyond her young years, causing her brilliant highlights to be massively shared and her thoughtful interviews to be constantly reposted. Her rapidly growing name constantly trends across multiple massive global digital markets simultaneously. And incredibly importantly, that massive online visibility deeply resonates profoundly with much younger American sports fans, which is exactly the highly coveted demographic the Women's Tennis Association has been actively trying to successfully engage, because they consume modern sports completely differently. They simply do not just passively watch boring matches because they actively follow compelling personalities. They deeply invest in incredible personal journeys, and they fiercely connect on a profoundly emotional level. Alex beautifully provides absolutely all of that, because she is never just a simple scoreboard presence, but rather she is a highly compelling narrator of her own epic destiny. And when a beautiful personal narrative perfectly meets elite athletic performance and deep cultural representation, spectacularly meets actual match results, you truly get something exceptionally rare, which is permanently sustainable global stardom. So when we excitedly talk about her becoming super famous entirely across America, it is absolutely not empty hype because it is a highly structural reality where deep community support flawlessly merges with pure athletic excellence. It is massive digital amplification, perfectly meeting the raw, visceral energy of a completely packed live sports stadium. Its incredible timing is currently aligning absolutely perfectly with a massive transitional era throughout all of women's professional tennis. And the truly remarkable part is that this spectacular moment may honestly only be the very beginning because she is not just building temporary momentum. She is actively and brilliantly building a massive permanent global brand that will last a lifetime. She is building a deeply powerful brand that heavily resonates with Generation Z and younger millennial audiences who fiercely crave pure authenticity entirely over fake arrogance and respect genuine work ethic completely over empty hype, while celebrating a beautiful global identity without any restrictive borders. She wonderfully represents profound humility and actively represents relentless burning ambition completely without any unnecessary dramatic theatrics. And please make absolutely no mistake about it because massive corporate sponsors clearly see it all. Elite global tournament organizers absolutely see it, and the massive mainstream sports media absolutely sees it, which is exactly why she is aggressively commanding such profound global attention. That is precisely why massive global headlines are aggressively amplifying her meteoric rise, and exactly why her highly respected name is absolutely no longer quietly whispered as a mere future prospect, but rather it is loudly spoken as an undeniable current presence. She genuinely feels exactly like the brilliant, glowing future of all women's professional tennis, and passionate American sports fans desperately want to proudly say they were actually there right at the very beginning of her epic journey. But looking far beyond the massive commercial branding and the loud media buzz, there is definitely something profoundly deeper actively driving this incredible surge, which is pure human psychology, because American sports culture absolutely reveres true grit. This particular country always passionately celebrates the ultimate fighting underdog who flatly refuses to ever fold under immense pressure because it completely idolizes pure, unbreakable resilience. It profoundly respects the ultimate fierce competitor who brilliantly turns painful adversity directly into explosive athletic fuel, and Alexandra Eala completely embodies that exact compelling narrative by bravely battling painful injuries. She tirelessly grinds her way entirely through the highly brutal daily demands of the professional tour by fiercely fighting through grueling qualifying rounds and bravely facing vastly higher ranked veteran opponents without a single ounce of fear. She simply does not just casually win her tennis matches because she goes to absolute war and fiercely fights for them, ensuring that absolutely every single grueling rally carries a profoundly deep competitive purpose. Every single desperate comeback attempt feels incredibly deeply personal because absolutely every hardcore athletic battle fought upon United States soil beautifully becomes a spectacular display of pure, unbroken competitive will. Whenever she confidently steps directly onto American soil, passionate sports fans are absolutely not just casually watching a standard game of tennis because they are actively watching pure, unbreakable resolve perfectly unfold before their very eyes. They are physically witnessing deeply raw, competitive hunger and actively watching a genuine elite warrior mentality existing perfectly in pure motion, which absolutely earns a massive amount of profound respect incredibly fast. As we collectively take a massive step back to truly and deeply absorb the absolute sheer magnitude of this spectacular athletic rise, one undeniable truth quickly becomes incredibly crystal clear because this is certainly not a cheap viral digital spike. This is absolutely not some passing short term wave, but rather profoundly deep structural athletic growth, firmly rooted in her solid foundational beginnings, her brilliant technical evolution, and her completely historic junior Grand Slam breakthrough. We have clearly witnessed the fiercely unwavering protective force of the incredibly passionate Filipino-American community, perfectly mixing with her spectacular absolute alignment entirely within this highly digital modern sports era. Absolutely. All of these incredible, powerful elements have beautifully converged together at the exact same perfect time. And that spectacular global convergence naturally creates an absolute freight train of unstoppable momentum that is entirely impossible to ever slow down.